here in the Czech Republic, you know, people are genetically different or something, and you know, it's just extra tough. Well, the fact of the matter is, it's extra tough just about everywhere. So welcome to human beings. Okay, so the question I would suggest then is, it's not a question. The question is not, you know, it's so difficult. The question is how to make it less difficult. Okay, that's the practical question, rather than feeling miserable about being Czech or Italian or whatever. So that's what the practical issue is, and it's all about practicalities. So what I always say to people is, obviously, when we set up Extinction Rebellion in the UK, we had a whole bunch of ideas about how to do it, how to mobilize, but it's really based upon what I would call sort of empirical investigation. In other words, everything I'm going to tell you about in this talk is really disputable. Okay. In other words, if you think you've got a better idea and you can prove it through going out and showing it, then I'm all ears, and let's drop, you know, my ideas and do your ideas. Right. It's not an issue of ideology or politics. And you'll find people who are interested in mobilization have a whole different range of politics, right? Because what they've come to realize is they're not going to fulfill their particular political orientation, let's say, unless they actually practically think about mobilization. So if you disagree with anything I say, that's fantastic. You can just go out and prove me wrong, and I'll be extremely pleased to have you speak rather than me. Anyway, so I am going to go through sort of one or two like interesting things that are happening around the world. And that brings me on to my other introductory comment, which is, when we started mass mobilization in the UK, and I worked with Kate quite a lot, it was a little bit of a minority pursuit, let's put it like that. You know, only very few people into it, and we had quite a few problems getting it on the go, didn't we, Kate, in the UK? But what was interesting was I went to the US on Zoom, you'll be pleased to know, and we started off there, and then we went to Australia, and we started a project there. But in the last 3 or 4 months since we hopefully have started thinking about a post-COVID world, I've had quite a few groups contact me and go, you know, we want to think practically about how to be successful post-COVID. And they've asked me to do talks about mobilization. So now there's 8 or 9 countries around the world who are engaged consciously in a mass mobilization project with a view to maximizing participation in civil disobedience. So, for instance, I've been to Canada, talked to people in Sweden, Poland, Italy, where else? Anyway, I'll do Germany. Yeah, Switzerland. Anyway, so they're all coming. This is the thing to be, it seems. So what's exciting is I'm hoping, I've already emailed Kate and 1 or 2 other people here to say we're going to have an international meeting for representatives who are involved in mobilization. And what I'm hoping is I can pass over the torch to some of you guys in terms of communicating what works and what doesn't work, so that we can look at all the countries can get together and talk about the practicalities of how to mobilize people. So that's coming along the line. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some general principles, and then I'll go through some major elements of mass mobilization that more or less everyone's engaged with. And then I'll mention 1 or 2 sort of new developments which you might be interested in. And then I'll pass over to the Polish guys as a sort of case study of how this can work. And then I think we're having questions. Okay, so the first thing to say, there's no particular order here, but the first thing to say about mobilizing people is it's not an abstract game, right? You know, I find this all around the world. People come to meetings and they'll go something like, well, you know, we're doing quite well in Prague, you know, or something like that. Well, mass mobilization isn't about general abstractions, right? What mass mobilization is about is we've got 6 groups in Prague. We're planning to set up 3 more, and we've delivered 7,000 leaflets and talked to 3,000 people and got 1,500 sign-ups, right? It's about facts and figures. And that's a really key cultural change that needs to happen in XR groups, is to start thinking about statistics, not because we're all about to become, you know, corporate capitalists or anything, but because that's how you get to understand what's going on and what works and doesn't work. And it's central also to accountability, so that if you're doing something, then a central democratic principle is you should be able to tell other people what you're doing and what you're doing well and what you're not doing well. And that requires numbers as well as sort of general comments. Okay, so that's really what we're going to focus on a little bit, I suppose. Okay, so the other thing that there's 2 main principles that I sort of introduced to mobilization when I was helping to set up Extinction Rebellion. And this was largely based upon the research I did at King's College. So again, it was empirical. I sort of discovered it. And obviously I was standing on the you know, on the shoulders of giants. It's not like what I'm going to say is particularly original, but there's 2 general principles here. So one is proximity. So the proximity principle goes something like this: is the closer things are connected together, the less likely they're going to entropize. In other words, start going downhill. So an example of this is, let's say you in Prague, for the sake of argument, you have a big meeting, right? And 80 people turn up. And what you say to people is, hey, let's have everyone's email addresses, please. So you take everyone's email, and then someone goes home and it's, you know, on their bed in their bedsit or something, and about a fortnight later they finally type all the emails in, and then 2 weeks later someone finally gets around to phoning everyone and asking whether they're still interested. So for the sake of argument, you'll probably get like 10 or 20% of people interested because you've left it 4 weeks. However, if you use the same amount of labor time, as you might say, and that evening after your big meeting someone types all the details into a spreadsheet, and then the following day they get phoned, right? Then that's closer. There's more proximity to the activity. So then the likelihood is, like, for the sake of argument, 80% of people will be interested because they've still got it in their head. They've been to this fantastic meeting. So one of the things which groups, you know, make big mistakes in is not maximizing proximity. So the ideal sort of rule of thumb here, for instance, is when you do something, you already tell people about what's happening next. Okay, so you don't even take the emails. It's not like, hey, we'll have your email and we'll email you again in a week or 2 weeks. It's like, okay, so here's the meeting, you know, you've got 8 people in it. And in the meeting, at the end of the meeting, you go, okay, so the next meeting is here and here's the Zoom link, right? So people already know what they're doing. Or yes, here's the meeting, and on Thursday, we're meeting at X Street in Prague to do postering or whatever. So people already know. So at every stage of your mobilization plan, you want to be thinking about that principle, because those of us who do a lot, we have this rather tricky sort of phrase called the sausage machine. I don't think we should use that, should we, Kate? But anyway, no. Okay. Anyway, oh God, ruined the presentation already. Right. So sorry about any vegans. I'm a vegan, just a matter of interest. So there we go. But the point is once you get into this, really what you're doing is taking people through a process. Okay. You know, someone's not interested, they go and do X, then they go and do Y, then they go and do Z, and then they're going to do civil disobedience, right? So that's really the design. So what you want to design in that is a close as connection as possible. And that's usually it can be a spatial thing, like something down the road, or it can be a temporal thing, i.e. a time thing, something happening really quickly. Okay, so that's the first thing, proximity. So the second thing, when you're designing mobilization, and this is a little bit more controversial, but it's totally robust, as they say in academia. which is people are primarily mobilized through sociability. So this is always a bit of a shock to all those, heavily political people. But the fact of the matter is, there's irrefutable research that says people join social movements for social reasons, right? That's why it's social movement, okay? So there's embarrassing statistics in the States that 50% of people that go to their first campaign meeting aren't actually interested in the campaign, which is really embarrassing, isn't it? So usually they go because their friend's going or because they want to get a girlfriend or something, right? It's not actually to do with the actual thing itself. So this is human beings for you, okay? Human beings love to be with other human beings and be socially stroked and have nice things said about them and say nice things about other human beings. If they go to a social space and no one talks to them, then guess what? They don't come back. As simple as that. Okay. So a combination of the proximity principle and the sociability principle is if you, I mean, obviously you've got COVID at the moment, so it's more difficult, but is if you go to a meeting, if you go up to someone within a minute or 30 seconds of them coming into that meeting and engaging small talk with them, then they're massively more interested. They're massively more likely to enjoy the meeting or the activity, XR activity to come. So the idea is that XR events have to replicate a certain sort of party structure, right? I don't know if all you guys go to parties, presumably all party animals like Kate or something like that. Is that right? Anyway, so you go to a party, everyone's been to a party, and you're given a glass of wine or something, and you're standing in the corner and no one's talking to you. Have you done that? I mean, I do it because no one used to like talking to me. And after about 10 minutes, you want to sort of, vaguely die because, you're useless and no one's ever going to like you. While if someone comes up to you within about a minute and starts going, oh, you're an interesting person, and what do you do? And after a while, you're, the spirit of the party, aren't you? And you get really confident and start, saying things you shouldn't or something. Okay, so it's the same idea. That's an example of the sociability principle. So another example, for instance, is once you've had the meeting, then people like to be kept in touch. So don't let people, go to the meeting and then not get phoned afterwards. And some in the UK, I don't know if this is developed, but people have talked about this around the world, is everyone's given a buddy. So, it's like I'm new to Extinction Rebellion. You buddy up with someone who's been in for say 3 months, and they just like check in on each other. So this sort of activity can't be underestimated, right? And one of the biggest successes of Extinction Rebellion around the world has been check-ins, right? So I presume you do check-ins and what's really, you might think check-ins, well, that's not really a big deal. It's a massive deal, right? Because hundreds of people have said this, that in many social movements, you go to a meeting and you're straight in there and everyone's, dehumanized through that process. Well, if you have a check-in, you learn that someone has had to take their dog to the vet and all this sort of thing. And it humanizes the relationship and creates sociability. Okay, so a third principle, and I'll get into a few specifics. So a third principle is people don't like sitting in meetings. Okay, surprise, surprise. I mean, I've just I'm talking to the people in California tomorrow, and they're already saying to me, Roger, we've got 1,000 people on our list, but no one's coming to the meetings. This is like a moan of everyone around the world. The fact of the matter is, people are never going to come to them. Yeah, we forgot the check-ins. God, oh God, sorry about that. Anyway, what's this? What am I talking about? Yeah, so they're saying, oh, lots of people aren't coming to meetings, right? People never come to meetings, right? Or hardly ever, because meetings aren't particularly interesting, unless of course they become a party. So what gets people going in a social movement or sustains them in a social movement is, without beating around the bush, is moving their bodies, right? In other words, doing action. That's what gets people on the go. And there's a number of reasons for that. There's a sociability reason, and there's a sort of embarrassing sort of chemical biological thing going on, which is if you're actually moving, there's research on depression. If you're just sitting in your bedseat, you're depressed, right? If you go out and start hoeing your garden, you feel better, or you go for a run. It's exactly the same thing. You get various chemicals in your brain and you feel happier, right? So what's really super important is that people are encouraged to do something. And to be honest with you, it doesn't actually matter that much what they do. So it could be going out doing leafleting, could be going out postering, could be going out talking to people, and obviously actually doing an action. So many groups around the world, there's a general rule of thumb that you need to get people doing something within 2 weeks of them actually joining the movement, right? That's probably, you don't want to throw them in at the deep end like the following day, sort of sitting in the road or something. But on the other hand, you don't want them, sitting there 6 months later talking about, the values and principles for the 10th time. It's really not going to turn them on. Okay, so it's got to be, hey, on Thursday we're going out and doing that for X. Do you want to come and join us? Okay, so what lots of social movements do is they start off with a big bang, and then 6 months later, there's 6 people, in a dreary pub talking about Marx's theory of labor or something, right? That routine. So it's like happens all over the place, and they're totally sure that they've got the right ideas, but never going to get anywhere because there's only 6 of them. Okay, so social movements all about actually getting out and doing stuff. Okay, so how am I doing? Oh, right. Okay, I will. I'll just go through the process, and then I won't say too much about this because I think the Polish guys will talk about it. But in case you're fairly new to the whole mobilization process, I'll just outline it. The main process that happens around the world is you go out and set up new groups, and you set up new groups via Heading for Extinction talk. And one of the best groups that's done this, because they haven't had much COVID, has been Western Australia. So what they do is they decide systematically, they split a region or a city, in their case Perth, into different geographical areas, and they find out where the most sign-ups have been in the area. So you've got the database, so you presumably got a database in Czech Republic, and you go, right, Northwest Prague or whatever has got most people, there's no group there. You contact everyone to ask them to find a venue, and then you put it on Facebook, and you go and leaflet the area, and you put posters up and various other things. There's like a checklist you can look at. Then someone goes and does the Heading for Extinction talk, and then you set up the group, and then you get out within a fortnight doing things. Okay, I'll say 1 or 2 things about this. If you live and breathe mass mobilization, one of the big sort of discussions is what's a good Heading for Extinction talk. And there's been a little bit of a trajectory here, because the Heading for Extinction talk, dare I say it, was originated by myself. And you can see me on YouTube, and it's a really bad talk, okay? Because usually I don't prepare very well, and I was rambling on and saying things I shouldn't say. But, but one of the things about the first Heading for Extinction talk was it was very direct, and it was very brutally honest. And then what happened is Extinction Rebellion took off in the UK, and with no disrespect intended, a lot of middle-class sort of urban lecturers sort of joined the movement, and they sort of decided they wanted to turn it into a bit of a science communication, and it became very precise and very flashy, and a lot of people around the world started doing that, and then they realized it wasn't really working. So the reason it wasn't really working, in my view and in other people's view, is that the Heading for Extinction talk thrives on the visceral brutality of the truth, right? It's an emotional activity. It's not primarily about having nice, flashy, PowerPoints and all that business, right? So to be somewhat controversial, I would suggest, and other people are starting to do this as well, is to get rid of the PowerPoints and use eye-to-eye contact, right? Particularly post-COVID. It's eye-to-eye contact that gets people going, and obviously going through what happens. And so that's something to think about. We can discuss that, and you can discuss that with other people around the world. But there certainly is a move towards a more 19th century evangelical style, right? Which is in there, you're lost, now you're found with Extinction Rebellion, sign up now, otherwise, hell will be coming along the road or whatever. Okay, so that's one aspect to what's happening, and we can expand on that a little bit. The other thing, which is potentially more controversial, but is absolutely robust, I think, in terms of the evidence, which is in order to do effective mobilization, and this has happened about 5 or 6 times around the world now, you need to have a full-time team that systematically organizes the Heading for Extinction talks, right? And obviously that raises the issue of money, which I'll come on to in a minute. But leaving that aside, what you want to be asking people all the time is to give up their jobs and work full-time on mobilization, right? This is what we did in London when we first started mobilization, stood up in the meetings, give up your jobs. Now, as I say, that's difficult for some people, but it's not difficult for lots of people, right? Maybe older people or younger people that can take 6 months off. So usually what mass mobilization teams consist of is between 3 and 10 full-time people, and then between 10 and 20 volunteers who work with them. That's usually what a mass mobilization team looks like. So it's been done in Australia, it's happening in Canada, certainly happened in the UK, and I think it's been happening in Poland. So the reason for that is if someone's working 60, 70 hours a week, then things happen. and you can get lots of synergistic sort of activity. And then what you do is you take, then you can sit down, take the Czech Republic, split it into those regions, and then go around and do these mass mobilization tours and get the whole thing on the go. Okay, and the last thing I want to say in terms of key elements is just to re-emphasize this action element, right? It's absolutely useless to exaggerate a little bit, but it's pretty useless trying to mobilize if you've got nothing to mobilize for, right? You can't mobilize for Extinction Rebellion. It really doesn't work. What you have to mobilize for is on June the 7th, we're going to Prague and doing X, right? That's what we're mobilizing for. That's what most people get excited about, right? People get excited about action. Apart from all your little, little Marxist labor of value sort of types, 99% of Czechs are going to get enthusiastic about something that's happening. So you need to have something that's happening. There's no point mobilizing, saying, we're mobilizing for a meeting. No one's going to be interested in that. Okay, so always have something on the go. Now, obviously, the problem with that is having things on the go is quite exhausting, as we all know, right? Organizing a rebellion event is somewhat exhausting. So a sort of creative solution to this is you have your big mobilization, rebellion, where you're going to, transform the political structures of the Czech Republic. Okay, so that's going to happen in September. But in June, you have like a halfway house where people it's not arrestable. Maybe it's a march. Maybe, it's a die-in. In other words, it's like something it's happening, but it doesn't require a massive amount of commitment and organization. But you have to have something going on. Otherwise, everyone's going to drift off. Okay, so I'll just finally say 2 new developments that are happening around the world. And as I said, I very much encourage, 1 or 2 of you to come to this international network we're setting up, and you can find out more information about it and get all the best practice from around the world. So 2 ideas, and there's lots of ideas, so I'm not going to talk for ages, but I'll just mention these 2 ideas. Okay, number 1. So one of the things that's super exciting at the moment is that in the US, they seem to have cracked the idea of how to monetize the movement. In other words, to raise money to pay voluntary living expenses for your central people. Okay. Now, I don't want to get into all the ins and outs of how who gets the money and all the rest of it. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to build a mass movement, you need to have some people working full time and someone's got to pay their rent. Okay. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with, nice middle class people who are 55 or something like me. Okay. You need to have like young people in there. You need to have people who basically need the rent paying. Okay. So what's happened in Portland is this guy, and he goes out. These are the stats. Okay. So he goes out 20, 30 hours a week. He does a stall. There's a particular way he does the stall. He asks people to fill in a questionnaire to get into a conversation, puts posters up down the street so people sort of know what's happening before they get to the store, and various other micro designs. But the upshot of it is once they've done the questionnaire, then he asks them to put their details in into this. They do it on their phone because there's a PR code. And then after that, there's a monthly donation. Okay. So he says, hey, can you give us $10 a month to get things organized in Portland? Okay. So he raises like $50 to $100 a week of repeat donations. Okay. So that's something between around $1,000 a year. Okay. So we're about to monetize this like Greenpeace do and all the other people that rake in loads of money not to do very much. Is what they do is they get people to give these monthly donations, okay, and then they pay people to do it. So in Portland, they're about to pay people to do stalling, and then soon they'll pay people to knock on doors and do the same routine. And the purpose of this is not just to raise money, but also you get a massive amount of signups, right? So this guy gets 100 signups a week. So that's 5,000 signups. So how many people have you got in the movement in Prague, right? Where is it? Like, go on, give us the number.
50 to 100.
Yeah, well, there we are.
You want the real active ones. The real active ones,
yeah.
maybe.
So let's say you've got 5,000, meandering around for the sake of argument, right? So basically, right, you're going to double. Let's say you've got 1,000 in Prague for the sake of argument, right? So in 10 weeks, one full-time person can double the number of signups in Prague, in principle, right? That's the potential of it. Okay. So if you've got 10 people doing that all around the Czech Republic, you can have 50,000 people. Now, obviously, loads of those people are just going to drift off. But the stats in Portland are out of 100 people that sign up, 10 people turn up, engage in civil disobedience activities, right? So go and get, go and do your spreadsheet and work that out. So that's a massive potential that's developing. Okay, so the other thing that's developing is on the other side of the equation is what another big problem around the world is you set up some groups, right? Setting up groups is one thing, isn't it? Keeping the groups on the go is another. You set up the group, fantastic, we've got a group, and then, it dribbles down to 4 people and they can't get anyone to do anything and blah, blah. Okay, so one of the things we're trying to do internationally is to create international tours, and you could do this nationally, of inspirational speakers. Because what the movement's generally done is you get someone like Roger Hallam or someone interesting or weird or whatever to come and speak to you, and everyone feels inspired, and then that's it, right? For the next 6 months, nothing happens. You're just sitting in meetings discussing, poster production or something. It gets really boring. So what you want, and this follows the evangelical religious model, right? Evangelical movements all around the world, and traditional political movements in the 20th century, every week or two you'd get a firebrand radical or preacher come and remind you that you're lost and you need to be found again and you need to give us more money, right? So that's what you have to do. Every month in the Czech Republic, you have to have some weird Roger Hallam-esque figure, right, come and go, guys, it's all fucked, get out there on the job, and everyone goes, oh yeah, of course, you know, and then everyone gets going again, and then, you know, it starts dribbling off, and then you get someone else, and it doesn't have to be, you know, science expert of the year guy, right? I mean, they're good, but it could also be a youth activist from Australia. It's just been to prison, right? You see what I mean? It's both. You can have experts as long as they can communicate effectively, you know, what's happening with the Arctic or something. And you can have Sergio from Australia telling you about, you know, what the food's like in Sydney prisons. Okay. So so what we're going to try and do as part of this international network is we'll get a whole bunch of really firebrandy people to come and do Zoom calls, right? So obviously Zoom calls have got their pros and cons, but what post-COVID, obviously you want to get a bunch of people in the Czech Republic who people go, God, you know, that guy's a real character. Like, get him on the road and send him around all the towns in the Czech Republic, banging on the table, going, for God's sake, you know, get a move on, guys, and all that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm going to pass over to the real experts now, who are the Polish. We're going to introduce like Mobilizers of the Year award, by the way, soon, because, you know, competition is good, as we all know. Don't tell people that, but I think Lucas and the Polish guys are they're in the bidding, but I think the Czech Republic, with a little bit of organization, I think you could be up there. And obviously, you know, it's only a matter of time before the Polish take second place. So, but it's good to learn. So I'm going to pass you over to the Polish, and you can see how easy it will be to take them over on the ratings. All right. So over to the Polish guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, I will grab it here from here. Thank you, Roger, so much. And wow, we are right now in the spotlight. And I also really glad because here we have Jadwiga from Poland and Przemo, and many of you know these guys because they came to you to the Czech Republic also in order to make a rebellion in 2020. So and actually this was the part of the process, and I'm so glad that Przemo and Jadwiga are here, and me as well, because our trio was in the fact this core group of the people who meet up in 2020 and who decide also and who co-create with few others first pre-event for Polish XR and rebellion in September 2020. We still didn't have so much plans. We still didn't have this micro design that Roger just showed us and the knowledge. We have pieces of knowledge, but what good happened from that, and maybe you had the same in back in the times, that we create a team of the people who we recognize as the people who are really into XR and who are really start to picking up the knowledge and some pieces of micro design and social movement design. So from that meeting in September, we also went out. Some of us visited you in Prague. We went to Berlin. Some of us started meeting up different rebels in UK, and we start to collect the knowledge. And from that point, we sit down like 4 or 5 people, and we did a reality check where we are actually as a XR Poland, as a movement. And we found ourselves in a pretty mess actually, and we found ourselves also in the situation that we recognize that actually we know not so much about how to build the movement, and also we do not have trainers, we do not have any resources that will help us to create the movement in mass scale. So from that reality check, once we found out that we don't have the knowledge, we reached out for the knowledge. So also we had a great meeting thanks to Jadwiga. Jadwiga asked Roger to come and to a few other mobilizers to talk with us and show us how this micro mobilization might look like. But we also did a reality check, and we also look at the situation we have in Poland and what we found out. We had a great moment because we had the national women's strike. And what the women did, they took the people out of the street, which really helped us, because we could recognize that many of the people, especially young people, are not there just for the women's right, but they are also there because they want significant change, and they also want to fight for the social issues and fight for the climate and environmental issues. So we found this really as a great opportunity, because we had the people on the streets, and we also knew that these people are also radicalized in a way, and they are waiting for somebody to also give them an offer, in sort of to invite them to the movement, which is radical in a way, or which has the theory of change based on the rebellion going on the much more radical activity than XR Poland was until now. Because what happened with XR Poland, we became sort of NGOs group. We had a lot of meetings. We centralized the whole movement. So everybody was just having a meetings. We had many talks, but nobody was able to take up any decisions, because we had an issue with the inclusivity. So we thought that the inclusivity means that we all need to make a huge central decision about everything. So what we also did from that point, we decided that we really need to start up with the working groups. So those few people who gathered together, we decided to make a mass mobilization team. We set up the things. We also prepared the materials. We also prepared some sort of knowledge, micro design, and we show up. And first, and I'm really talking right now to you about the practical, not about this theory, because that was very important act of us, that we came and we said, okay, guys, we have an idea, we have our mandate, and we gonna do this, and we do not ask you for your permission like the movement, because we want to show you how the grassroots movement works, that some of us might take some account and offer something to the movement if this field, this accountability is not actually run by anybody else. And that, of course, made a huge tension inside the movement. And we even were not so well prepared for such a backfire effect that we had inside of the movement. So that was the rebellion inside of the rebellion, in fact. But that also helps everybody in order to activate and in order to say, okay, what is just happening? If those guys are ready to come in, take a space and propose an action for us, so maybe we should also be a part of it. And this is like the part of the story. So what we made from this reality check, I'm coming back to that story. So we recognize that we need to, first of all, like call back and gather back the people who were in the movement, but they drifted away because we were no more XR. So we decided that we need to make some sort of an event, radical event, and establish some sort of team zero, like as Roger just said, to make this social need as I want to be the part of it. I want to be like them. So we decided that we will, first of all, we will use the women's strike that also had this group of the environmental issue team. And we announced and we gave a sort of a deadline to a government. We just went there for the press conference and we said, we are giving you, the government, 3 months deadline to make a citizen assembly. If not, we will start to rebel. And we went out from this meeting. And from that, we set up a deadline for ourselves as well, because we start to prepare first the micro design, we start to prepare the big plan and how to prepare the training team, DNA trainers, heading for extension speakers and NVDA trainers. We start to make a small trainings and small actions in order to challenge people to prepare how to make the different actions, swarmings and so on. And after these 3 months, we really went out on the streets, and we decided that we will make like 3 days event. So first day was the event for the people who were already involved in an XR. So many people from outside look at us. And the second day, that was the day of solo actions and brave actions, also in order to make the people look at the XR folks and opening the street for the others, so the people start joining us. And then on the third day, we had actually 11 cities who made different actions, mass actions, solo actions. So more and more Polish cities were involved in this XR action. And meanwhile, parallel, especially mass mobilization team was preparing the trainers and the heading for extinction talkers and DNA trainers. So right now we are in the process that the trainers are already there, and we just started giving the people the training. So the people saw us on the streets, and right now they would like to join and they would like to train themselves in order to make the action or the actions and be more radical on the street, because we also noticed that the people do not have the tools and do not have the knowledge how to make it. Also parallel, we have a great mobilization team that prepare the whole process, how to start up the group, local group, and how to make the action zero, also not to just sit and talk, but also to have the opportunity to just, as after the first gathering, to go out the streets and to make the rebellion and to radicalize themselves on the streets. And also what we made, we also announced that in summer, we will have 7,000 people on the streets in the summer in Poland. So that also is like the horizontal goal for the people who would like to join and to be with us on the streets. So yeah, so we made really significant and practical moves, but also what was very important, we create the team of the trainers, and we create the team of this team dedicated that works full-time job, and who also make a tempo for the rest of the movement and really make the things going on. And I will pass on to Jadwiga, and maybe you will continue from that point. Go
on. Hi everyone. It's great to see you. So many familiar faces. And for me, it's pretty ironic that I am speaking right now, because I feel like the only difference between us and you is that some of us Poles got to see you and got to see you in Prague. Roger was talking about the truth and the power of the truth, but there is one more thing that is very powerful, and that is fearlessness. It is inspiring and you can't resist it. And fearlessness is what we saw in Prague. In September, we saw rebels sitting on the street who got tear gassed, who were not able to see anything for a couple of hours, but were there on the street. We saw you guys setting up a tripod right next to the policeman. We saw the lawyer who to whom we had our phone number, but he was kneeling in front of a wall with us in handcuffs. It was something that really changed us and showed us that that's in fact everything we need: the fearlessness and this emotion that, yeah, we can do it. And you guys have this. That's what it takes, a team of people who just say, all right, fuck it, that's serious. And right now we're going to work our asses off and we'll do it because it needs to be done. And so I want to tell you that done is better than perfect. And that's a lesson I got from you. But I also want to say that it's going to be hard, because when you start running and you say, all right, fuck it, then people just get angry at you because you're so far away. But then they see that you can get to the goal faster. So yeah, you are going to work your asses off. You're going to have your hearts broken and you are going to feel like shit. But when you're lost, just look for your friends. And if they are right behind you, then it means that you are in the right place, because you are with the people who you love. And I feel like we are here today to tell you that we are your friends. We are those people who want to stay with you, to stand and to do what's right, because we are in this together. So yeah, let's do this together, and yeah, let's do what needs to be done. Some of you have our emails and phone numbers, but I'll post them in the chat, so you can be sure that we can just get together and be together on the streets and get tear gassed and mobilize the world to be a better place.
Thank you. That was pretty motivational, I think, at least for me. If I can speak for myself, just a little bit, I feel like a lot of people in Czech Republic right now feel kind of lost, and it has been like this since, I think, since the last rebellion here, right? Maybe even the previous one. I don't know, like very long time. And now with the COVID and all the lockdowns here, and I'm not sure if you guys watch Czech Republic situation closely or not, but it's pretty messed up here, and everybody feels like it's completely out of our hands. And I actually had one, not so much of a question, but more like a comment here in the chat, saying that we should point out that vaccination process here in Czech Republic is very slow, and the post-COVID world seems very far in the future. So I think that it's sort of, you know, when I listened to Roger, I was hearing about, you know, connecting people and sociability and things like that, and I think that's very hard to achieve in our current situation. And at least from my point of view, we are losing so much time here and also so much motivation. I think that's really hard right now. But anyway, that's first one of the comments here, that Czech Republic post-COVID situation or post-COVID world seems really far in the future. I'm not sure if you guys want to comment on that, or if I should just leave it here. just so everybody can think about it. Maybe that you know, different countries may have different situation right now with COVID. I'm not sure. So, and then there is another question. Also, guys, if you have anything on mind, please message me, because we don't have that many questions yet. So I'm sure there's still enough time for you, so you can use it. So another question here is
Veronica, sorry, I just saw Przemo would like to comment on that. Maybe
oh, sorry, yeah.
Directly repeat you, because he's also on the street in Poland and also in this COVID situation as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm not sure if I'm gonna answer the question, or I'm not even sure if that was a question, but I just wanted to say that, well, COVID sucks everywhere, and motivation isn't built around COVID being there or not. Motivation is something that you have to build for yourself, basically. And for me, the most important lesson from this whole experience that we did in Poland is that you just basically have to find 3 to 5 people who are willing to do it 100% and who doesn't give a fuck, like Yap said. They just do what's need to be done, and they read and they learn and they speak and they, I don't know, call to Roger or anyone, or doesn't really matter. You basically build a small team and you just make the plan for your big action and mobilization, like for your first 3 months, and then you just go for it. And it doesn't matter whether there is a COVID or not around, you are still able to do a lot and amazing stuff. And it's just about your and mine motivation, I think. And so, yeah, I actually wanted to say only this, that whether if you have these 3 or 5 people, just email the addresses that Yad gave you, and we will just learn together, because we don't know what we are doing. Basically, we didn't do the big mobilization yet in Poland. It's still ahead of us. So I guess we can just learn together and, you know, support each other. But yeah, this is really important to have this team of people that really, you know, go for it, that have 120% of their time, yeah, for this job. All right, thanks.
Okay, that's powerful. Right, so we should move to another question. And second thing I have here is how to keep in touch with people not joining the meetings, how to keep them engaged, especially during COVID. Anyone wants to answer that?
Lucas, do you want to do that?
Yeah, I may do that, and please, if you would add to that. My first answer, and I will say that, and later on I will go to the practical answer, but my first answer was to go out the street and make them jealous that they want to rejoin you and be there. But I know that I'm talking from the Polish situation, because we really did that. And right now, Przemo just reminded me that we also, when we joined the women's strike and we went out on the streets, we were also very frontline with the women, because we also, and we sign up that this is also Extinction Rebellion. Of course, the human rights movement and human rights fight was really important for us, but we also were streetwise, and we signed up, we are from Extinction Rebellion. The people from Extinction Rebellion are on the street. So this is also my tip for you, that these few dedicated people are really need to be this pushy, this strong horses that are like keep running and go forward. And how we keep in touch with the people, of course, we have this Mattermost, and we have all the platforms. Probably you are also up to. So we use the platforms. We of course we have newsletters, and what we do, we are trying to keep on the events. As a very small actions, like a swarmings for a few people. Right now we will have the wave of swarmings, so that requires not more than 5 people. So we are still good with according to law. We also joined the Rebellion of One, for example, where you can go out and be on the street. So this part is to be on the street and to be present. Then we are also trying right now to set up and to be much more present in the media, so to give up the speeches and also highlight that we are the Extinction Rebellion and we are talking in the name of that. But how to be in the direct contact? For us, very good platform is Signal right now. So we collect a lot of different contacts, and we are setting up different groups, and we are trying to set up more homogenic group, like, I don't know, White West people, region-oriented people, or action-oriented people. Also, Jadwiga is one of the coordinators. She makes a affinity support team. So we are trying to build out the different affinities, and we are inviting people for online meetings and we keep the subject that they might be interested to, and they are joining us for such a talks. And of course we do a talks, as Roger just said. So Roger also give a talk for us like a month ago. Now we will have other talks for some scientists, and so on and so on. So yeah, you might, this is also a little bit about the show business as well, not only like, hi, how you doing? We tried also to make this one-on-one relation with the newcomers, and to make some sort of a patron that somebody is taking care for 2-3 weeks for a newcomer to just ask, okay, how are you? and are you up to join us for some certain activity? This is where we are right now.
Okay, thanks, Lukáš. Anyone else wanted to comment on this issue or this question? Arne?
Yeah, I just want to, it's been wonderful to hear Jadwiga and Przemysl that we actually had an influence and inspired you in September. That was news to me, because now it's working the other way again. When I played, I've been thinking about Rebellion of One since January. And then in February, I learned that there was a thing going on in England, actually, which is called Rebellion of One, and that I could join. And then the last motivational kick was, what? The Polish have done it already? So I'm going to be out there and follow you. So, and I'm so glad to say that we now have 9 people willing to sit in the Czech Republic in mid-May. And this is a call out to everyone. We need support. We need more sitters. We need support. We can directly, every Monday, we have someone sitting, and you can actually be in action. So there's no need to wait 2 months until we have our big rebellion. We'll have ongoing mobilization action from now on. So please get in touch, and let's keep inspiring each other. I love the idea.
Thanks, Arne. Okay, so we should probably move on. So what else do we have here? Oscar, we have Oscar. Yeah, so I had another question coming in. You guys mentioned that in Poland you had 3 days of actions. So Andrei was wondering if it was 3 days, one after another, or if there were any gaps. Also, I was wondering, because maybe I didn't listen properly. I'm not sure if the actions were from the beginning in just one city, or if you tried to spread them over few cities immediately from the start.
Yeah, we had this opportunity that Jadwiga, do you want to go on?
Yeah, is it okay for you? Right, so the actions were, day after day. And the first day was in the capital city. And then we had a press conference. But then the 2 next days were decentralized in many cities, in 20 cities, I guess. So and it was very good for media coverage, because when we did the first action in capital city and then the press conference, we didn't get so much media coverage, but then the 2 next days were just a kick, because media saw that something is happening for more than just a 1 day. But yeah, it also brought like a lot of power to the movement, also during COVID, because the actions were decentralized. So people didn't feel like they again have to go to Warsaw, to the capital city, and do something right there, because they could do anything they wanted in their own city, and anything that they were prepared for and felt ready for.
I just want to add on that, which is also very important, that we took care to decentralize even the planning procedures. So we call a daily plenum, and we split those daily plenum for 2 parts, and both parts were held outside Warsaw. So first we went to a little bit up northeast, and we collect the people from the different cities from that part of Poland, because we have also a really big issue in between capital and the rest of the Poland, which I do understand that people also want to feel like equal in some way. So we thought, okay, let's do that, and let's travel with this daily plenum from like the east part of Poland and the west part of Poland, but both daily plenums were held outside Warsaw. And we also invite the people for this first day, which was great plan. That was a sort of performative action. So we just came and we surrounded a bit of parliament, standing in quiet, because we said, we came here in quiet and we are waiting for you, because this is your deadline, last day that we gave you to keep the citizens assembled. So we were just standing in front of the parliament in the quiet to say that we do not have a voice because of the government. So we invite the people from all around Poland to be the part of this performance and this performative action. So it was very important that we all planned that together, and we could meet even in Warsaw. We have this really the sense of being there together and being represented from all around Poland. And from that point, people went back to their cities, and they were really like also uplifted and like encouraged to start an action in the cities, not only in Warsaw but outside. So then that escalated, and at the end we really had these 11 cities. And few of us also on the next day after this parliament day went out, and we knew that we need to have also a few people who will make a dedicated and like brave action, going out in the morning, standing on the bridge, or glue themselves to the parliament, or to chain themselves to another important building in one of the major cities in Poland, also to make this first step for other people to join. So that was also quite well planned, that we knew that we have a few spices actions in this soup, and then we just waited for others to like bring other ingredients to this, to this meal. And that actually happened, because also media coverage helped us to, okay, something is going on. And we also knew that we are part somehow of the women's strike, so they will also help us to present our action to the wider viewers, to the public.
Okay, thanks, Lukáš. Anyone else, or should we move on? Okay, I'll move on to the next question, which is from Honza. And Honza is asking, you talked about how it is necessary to put in 50+ hours per week and be really committed to succeed. What we've been dealing with here is that often the key rebels take on too much, they burn out, and then it's difficult to get back on track, or teams have to start from scratch. Any tips on how to avoid this other than regenerative culture, mental hygiene, etc.? I have no tips, to be honest. Zero. Yeah, so Przemo, maybe?
Yeah, so it's not really an answer, I guess, but for us, it was really important that we all quit our jobs or our studies, and we just decided that we're gonna dedicate to this. And I think it would be impossible to do, I don't know, to study and do 60 hours of Extinction Rebellion, because it's just too much. And also, yeah, regenerative culture. We wanted to have on our team one person. Actually, we just figured it out like 3 weeks ago, because we started to feel burned out ourselves as well. But we have one person on our team only looking for our well-being and just being with us on meetings and saying like, stop guys, it's not, I can see that you are not in a great emotional state to make this decision right now, and just stop us and give us some more space. So this is really important as well. And I think what Jadwiga said, I don't know, for me, this relationship that we built when we were building this team, is just things that keeps us going, I think. Like love and gratitude, and just saying thank you, you did an amazing job, like every, I don't know, 2 hours. It's really important as well.
What I also want to add to that is very important, and Roger also pointed at that we need a VLE, and we really need to make conditions for the people who are willing to take over the full-time commitment. And you really need, and we really need this as well, to have this full-time commitment. What is an issue for us, and I do believe that might be an issue also for the Czech people, as we have the same roots. We are very romantic in our fight. So we think that every single rebel should commit his heart guts and everything what you have, but you shouldn't take any money for that, because in Poland we are saying if you are taking the money for that, that means you are NGOs or you working in the corporate world. What helped us in this maybe was a little bit that I was a part of the global support for a year, so I also could bring some sort of good practice, telling the movement in Poland that actually, no, if you really want to have a regenerative culture, this is not about the sun and the teddy bear. This is about taking care of your fellows, also by giving them the food, the shelter, and giving them the vitamins. And this is the only way that we can provide and we can really work. And if I'm full-time committed rebel, that doesn't mean that I do not respect your work that you're doing, that you, or your kids, your house, and so on, so on. And this is a big, actually, a big talk in the movement. For me, that shows that our movement is much more mature if we are ready to establish a good and organized and healthy conditions. Also, that requires a money and VLE and so on. I don't know where you are in the Czech, but that's gonna be a huge talk. And for me, this is the talk that is like a threshold in order to put the movement in absolute different place, from this romantic to this very like practical movement that needs to manage the resources and needs to manage the strength of the people who are willing and to make it happen. There is no other way.
Yeah. I never considered the Czechs romantic, but that was kind of on point. So, surprise to me.
I could say something if it's okay as well. I think there's in terms of people being sustainable, there's like with all these things, there's a lot of different elements that come together. So, you know, you've just heard that it's really important to have a structure of support where there's one or two people looking after people and checking up on them. There's requirement for people, you know, to go and have breaks. Everyone needs a break and what have you. There's also the need, as has just been said, for people to get financial support for the reasons that's just been said. So these are all really, there's lots of different elements to this, right? Human beings are complicated. There's not a one thing fits all. And another element, I think, with sort of discovering, or one of the things I'm trying to emphasize along with those, is that we have to create a culture of resistance. And a culture of resistance means fundamentally moving out of individualism, right? And therapeutic sort of, you know, personalized culture. And what I mean by that is like connecting with the radical traditions in your culture and learning about them, and learning that everything that everyone feels on this Zoom call has been felt 1,000 times before in our histories, right? There's nothing unusual about what we're doing. You know, people have been living and dying for justice for thousands of years. And it's important that everyone reads their history, their radical histories, you know, read about Martin Luther King, read about Gandhi. And what you'll do if you read, you know, Havel and all, you know, you've got all your guys in Czechoslovakia, right, in the Czech Republic that have inspired people all around the world. And it's essential that you understand and feel like privileged to be part of an ongoing tradition. So you get out of your own head, right? This isn't about you, which connects with the other thing, which is, for me, like the central move for activists in terms of sustainability is to move into a service orientation, right? It's not about whether it's working for me, it's what I'm giving to the cause, right? What I'm giving to the common good. And there's all sorts of different cultural ways of doing that, through meditation or through, you know, and so everyone's got their different ways of doing it. But if you look at the key activists around the world that get up and do a 60-hour week, week in, week out, year in, year out, right? They don't burn out. Burnout is not inevitable. It's all about your philosophy of life. It's all about connecting with other people. And it's something that I hope to do some work on with inspirational people around the world, so people can have role models, right? to go, okay, so that's how it's done. So yeah, it's a very important area, and I hope that this international cooperation would lead to some more support on that sort of thing.
All right, thanks, Roger. And I have another question directly for you. So it's from Marek. So I'll just read it out. Hi, Roger, thanks for the talk. I think the numbers of people that we mobilized in London are their visceral experience, and their visceral experience speak for themselves.
Sorry, say that again.
Is getting a point of a protest, doesn't getting arrested affect mobilization and make it difficult to support those arrested with resources? And there's also a note. I recall a video of you telling a policeman, I have a complaint that arrests are not happening quick enough. I think this was in order to reach a certain number of arrests. So, Roger.
You might have cut out, Veronica, halfway.
Oh, halfway through.
I think. Roger, did you get that? Or did Veronica, she froze for me.
What you're saying, like you need a certain number of arrests to get things on the go. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically Marek here is asking if that is the point of the protest, or if you moved on away from that idea, or what's your current stand of arrests? On arrests.
Well, yeah. the first thing to say is like, you know, one of the things about my culture, I come from Manchester in Northern England, and everyone takes the piss out of everything, right? Because it rains all the time, you know, so life's pretty miserable. So that's why we have jokes. So sometimes that doesn't culturally translate, right? So when you're talking to a policeman and you're going, hey, you haven't arrested enough of us, right? It's a joke. Okay, it's not some deep political statement or something that people need to get upset about, right? It's like part of the cultural heritage of where I come from. So having said that, like there's the whole sort of how many arrests we can get sort of culture is a double-edged sword, right? Because as I said at the beginning, the bottom line of political change is it's a numbers game, right? And that's just a fact. It's just the way it is, right? It's about how many people you've got times how high the level of civil disobedience or resistance they engage with. There's those two sort of brutal sort of elements to it, if you see what I mean. Now, having said that, I think it's extremely dangerous to sort of reduce activism to how many arrests you get, because it creates a dangerous emphasis on outcomes. And just connecting to this point about sustainability, historically, if you look at the traditions of resistance in the past, like they weren't, the fundamental character of resistance movements that were successful is, I've said this in many talks, is that they were doing it because it was good in itself. You know, a bit like what Jad was saying. It was like, fuck it, we're doing this, what the fuck, right? It's like, has to be done, right? And it's not like, we don't know whether we're going to win, but it doesn't matter, because what matters is to step up into resistance. And that's the key determinant of success. So there's a central paradox, right? And it can just go round in your head 1,000 times, which is, you know, people need to not be bothered about arrests in order to get the arrests. So, you know, you can play around with that however you like. But I've been emphasizing over the past year more that, like, the arrests, you know, getting arrested and ultimately going to prison is a function of resistance, right? If you're in resistance against the regime, a sign that you're making impact is that you get arrested, right? The arrest isn't the impact. It's a consequence of the impact. The reason why they're arresting you is because you're disrupting life in Prague, right? The reason they put you into prison is because you're becoming successful at actually disrupting things. And obviously, you know, both of those things have their own effects as well. So yeah, so you need to maintain a balance. And as I keep saying to people, like, a lot of people are very different as well. Some people are very motivated by facts and figures. Other people are motivated by the emotionality of resistance, right? And both those orientations are valid, but they need to be in balance. And I think there are tensions within each of our hearts and minds, if you see what I mean, individually, of course, as well. So it's both things are important, I would say.
Okay, thanks, Roger. And another question here comes from Anne, and it's for the Polish guys. So, are you in Poland connected or seen connected to any anti-COVID or anti-government protesters? Is Strike Kobiet connected to anti-COVID? And if so, how do you juggle that? Yeah, Jadwiga?
No, we aren't. And yeah, we are very clear about that. We are fighting for life on the earth and not against it. So no, and we weren't seen as connected. And I can't recall any instances of people who were anti-COVID who would join our demonstrations. We didn't have that problem. And Strike Kobiet isn't connected in any way to anti-COVID people. But I guess so this strike was so big that maybe there were some people who were anti-COVID, but they weren't seen in the media, or they weren't seen by the public. The movement is very weak in Poland, so we didn't have such problems.
All right, thanks, Jadwiga. It just reminded me of my last experience. Actually, we had a small action in Brno, and we were just standing. I think it was like 15, 20 people, like a group of people, everyone wearing masks. But there were people passing by asking us if we were anti-masks protesters, just because that's pretty much the only thing that's happening right now in Czech Republic, right? So I sort of understand, but yeah. I have another question here from Tanya. Hey Tanya, I haven't seen you in such a long time. Yeah, I'm having kind of a hard time reading the questions and at the same time listening to you guys. So I'll just read it as it's written. So hello everyone, I will be more of a silent observer today, says Tanya. I have a question for Roger. It is under the context that I lived here in Czech Republic with XR. What action can we consider successful? We have been trying to recruit people for quite some time, but there were events that rather scared them away. I understand them, but is it not necessary to go further? Would it be bad to also think of less radical actions? Because between 1 and 3.5%, there is a difference. I understand that we are in an emergency, and I respect, I love and admire my friends who risk themselves, but many times my hair has stopped thinking about the consequences in relation to XR. I think it is also necessary to enter and then expand in a more radical way. I don't know, maybe marketing, or do you really think that there are so few of us who would fight for our planet? Thank you. So yeah, I guess the main question here is if we should focus on more or less radical actions just to I don't know, bring in potentially more people, or if we should go radical as it can be. I guess that's really a big question here in Czech Republic, or something we have been dealing with for quite some time, because every time someone decides to do something radical, we have a huge backlash within the movement, which as I understand seems to be an issue worldwide. And for me, I think that's necessary, and I think it's a good thing if the action almost breaks the entire movement. I think that's exactly the action we have to go for, but it wasn't a question for me. So Roger.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems with the environmental movement is that it's been going for 30 years and, you know, arguably 50 years, and during that time, it's been massively unsuccessful, which is why we're in the terrible state we're in today. And the problem with movements that have been going for 30 years is that they develop an inertia and a conservatism, which is very, very difficult to shift. And they feel like they own the territory, right? So again, you know, there's nothing unusual about the situation we're in, as it were, at the moment, because the same thing has happened, you know, throughout European history. You have a radical movement, and then it becomes gradually more conservative. And then it has a nervous breakdown when someone comes along and says the emperor's got no clothes, right? And that's where we're up to at this point in history, except this time round, of course, it's the last chance we have, you know? So it's an absolute no-brainer to me that what we need to do is to transgress that inertia, but through radical action. And it will create a massive reaction. And we know that when we create that negative reaction, that's a sign of our success, okay? We need to see that the environmental movement does not exist in order to promote the environmental movement, right? The movement exists to save our children. That's what we exist to do, right? The movements are a means to an end. And I've said this to Extinction Rebellion, right? Extinction Rebellion, I don't give a shit about Extinction Rebellion, right? For me, it's just a means, right? You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm a co-founder, so it'd be really easy to get ego-y about it, right? But I'm not, because what I care about is, are we being successful, right? Are we speaking the truth? Are we being fearless, like Jad says? And that's the way society gets changed. It's always the way that society gets changed. And one of the massive inspirations for this is Havel in Czechoslovakia, right? You know, those people in the Czech Republic inspired people all around the world. Why was that? Because they held the faith, right, in the decency of human beings for 30 years. So if we have to go through another year or two of being pariahs, then so be it, because sooner or later we're right? And thousands of people will be on the street. And our role is to speak the truth until that point when hundreds of thousands of people come on the street, because there definitely will. There's absolutely no question about it, right? The question is when, because we know this thing's only going to get worse and worse. Now, having said all that, like, there's certainly a role for doing smaller actions to bring people on, as you might say, right? So you need a little bit of sophistication around it, right? If someone's never done an action before, you don't want to be throwing them in the deep end, right? But so there's some nuance about it. And the other thing which is related to this, and this is another big problem at Extinction Rebellion, is what I would call like the encroaching emotional repression of middle-class climate movements, right? There's no point going to prison and then saying there's a little bit of a problem with the climate, right? In other words, the messaging has to reflect the action, and the action has to reflect the message, right? And doing high-level action is very transgressive, but also what's really transgressive is to actually say the situation's utterly fucked, right? You won't hear Greenpeace say that, but that's what we need to say on the media, because it is. And we need to speak in the language of ordinary people about what's going on, you know, in an emotional way, like Jad did, right? And Jad did a little 5 minutes. We all suddenly felt, oh yeah, this is it, right? This is how human beings work. They don't work through, you know, quoting from the IPCC report, right? What human beings work on is the emotional ecstasy of resistance, right? That's what we need to create. And we create that, as Jad says, through fearless action. So it's all systems go. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck to everyone. I have no other questions here. So oh, there's another question.
Yeah, I just.
Okay, another question from Honza. At the beginning, XR seemed to be completely apolitical. So the climate crisis could serve as the lowest common denominator and around which people can mobilize. However, looking at the ground conditions, reaching out to politically conscious people has better chance of getting them active than people who had never thought about activism. So I guess my question is, talk only about the climate and ignore other things, or connect with other causes and groups? It seems that the second option worked well in Poland. Well, that's a good point.
Do Polish want to talk about that one?
Yeah, it is. I will start and maybe you will finish that. It is complicated. Of course, we have a lot of discussion about that. Shall we be intersectional? Shall we go into the politics? For sure, we stick to our message, which is important. And we also, we are also part of the environment in Poland. So we are also the people who see the social issues, especially the social issues in Poland, because we found out that if we do not have the social rights, and we are also taken back by the Polish government to the 19th century, so we will not give a shit if we will talk about the basic human rights. So we as a people, we are also participating in that fight because we are the humans. And as I said already, we are also like showing up that we are the activists of Extinction Rebellion, where also in order to show that we are on the streets and we do care about what is happening. But then we are coming back with our message and we say there is a lot of bad things going on. There is a lot of issues, but we also know that we are bringing like the first class issue and first class question. There is a lot of question to be answered, but we know that also the climate environmental crisis will bring up and will make the mess in the social and the political and with everything what we know. So so we are with the political issue. We of course not stick to any political party and so on. We are just on the street with the people because there is a good cause. And then we are coming back to our main agenda, telling that this is the most important question we would like to make people aware of. So this is my answer on that.
If I could, I just wanted to say, because the thing is that we actually, we did partake in the strikes and we were on the streets. But the thing is that we, at some point, we just said, all right, this crazy thing is happening in Poland, but we need to fight our fight. And so we didn't wait and we didn't ask for permissions. We didn't go to other groups and say, let's just figure it out together. But we just said, all right, we are doing this. And if you want to come and join us, you can, but you cannot also, you can stop us. So it's not about talking, it's about doing. And when you are doing, then those groups want to be part of your movement because they see you as radical, as brave, as as active. So that's, I feel like it was a very big lesson for us also to just see that, all right, we can take part in women's strike, but we also need to do XR. And when we started, just women's strike helped us because that's what other movements do.
Okay, so I think if no one wants to comment on that, we can move on.
I add something to that.
Yeah, please.
Because Yeah, it's Przemo from Poland as well. I think it's also about the numbers, and it's very subtle. In general, I agree that the more political you are, the better for a climate movement as an XR, because then you've got a better chances to just mobilize people from all around the society, basically. And in Poland, with women's strikes, there were, I don't know, 200,000 people on the streets, and the polls showed that like 75 or 80% of people agreed with the women's strike. So it was almost whole Poland. And this is something different than saying, than going through leftist agenda, which in Poland, for example, leftist parties have like 4% in elections. So I think it's really subtle. And I think when we start to talk about these issues, then we could potentially lose a lot of supporters. But when we were just a part of a huge movement that was really uniting for Poland, then it was something really different. So I wouldn't say that the Polish examples show that it may be, I don't know, that it's a better strategy to be more intersectional as an XR. I wouldn't go for, I wouldn't say that. Thanks.
Well, I think it probably depends on the situation in that particular country, because I'm not sure if we have anything like the women's strike in Poland right now here in Czech Republic. I mean, Andrej, he messaged me and mentioned Milion Chvilek, but that's not a radical movement. Okay, I have another question from Luboš, and he's asking, what do you think about the zero COVID strategy and its possible merge with XR chain of thought? He says they were trying outside XR to promote lockdown of industry here in Czech Republic in the highest peak of the pandemic, but nobody cared. Isn't that significant to climate crisis as well? So that's the question. Not sure if anyone has anything they want to say on that. I guess that there has been a discussion about COVID and how COVID situation and how it connects with the climate crisis and how to deal with both situations. So I have Arne wanting to say something.
Just quickly to respond to Luboš's questions. I think the time scale is so vastly different. The climate crisis, has a years and years of time span and of development. But the zero COVID, it means you need to lock down fully, and within a few weeks, actually, you'll see the results and the numbers are coming down. So I think in that regard, those two movements are not really that compatible, because I think a lot of people who would get very involved for the zero COVID, they might lose actually interest once the numbers actually come down. At the same time, those are people who got activated, so in that regard, what the Polish just said about the Strajk Kobiet, it might work, because you get that filter. You get those people that actually get out on the road. That's your filtered target group already. They get activated. They're not the ones who just stay behind and watch TV.
Okay, I can't see anyone else raising hands. So next question is actually from Tanya again. She says, thank you for the answer. I'm concerned with how to reach people. A lot of people would support us, and in time they would probably come with us on the streets. But now they won't go to the streets with us, and so she's wondering why. Do we do actions not radical enough? Or yeah, that's the question from Tanya. I guess because here in Czech Republic, and I'm sure you probably have similar discussions in Poland, some people feel like actions too radical could frighten people. So maybe we should do actions not so radical to make people come to XR. and or maybe it's the other way around, you know, maybe we need radical actions to activate people.
Actually, this reality check in Poland showed us that we are talking about the actions and about the sacrifice, and we don't do the actions. Of course, we have the whole COVID situation and this life and death threat. So we also need to observe that, how that impact people and how that impact people activity and being able to go out. So yeah, again, the women's strike show up, but the women's strike show up actually that you can trigger people in a way and they will go out on the street if they really feel that this is the fight that they want to be the part of. So yeah, the people are quite ready to go out, at least that happened in Poland. But coming back to the question, what we found out in Polish XR, that was we are not radical actually. We do the actions from time to time, like, I don't know, every 3 or 4 months. Usually they are really easy swarmings or something that I did feel that we are in the sort of being not integrated in between the message, this is an emergency, and we do not act like that because we do nothing actually. And we expect people, what Roger just said, we are inviting people to something and there is nothing. There is an empty room and the people are coming, they are ready to join and to act, but there is no activity actually. So for us, the issue was there was no enough radical action, and at least we were not acting in order to, like, yeah, we are embodied what is in our message. And even if the people are not joining us, at least they are look at us and they are trust us, and maybe later when the better condition will be in order to COVID, they will start to join us. And the people are joining, what we can see, at least much more than it happened before, when we were just about using a Facebook or making a nice events or making the sort of, I don't know, another Facebook chain of like, don't like, that lead to nowhere.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel as well. Okay, guys, so I just wanted to mention we're coming up to 2 hours already. Przemo, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say, I don't know, because it may be similar as it is or was in Poland. Because, for example, we never give any details about our action in Poland. So basically, people don't know how to join. So the question is how to give details, like exact time and location, and like give them 2 weeks beforehand. I don't know if you guys do that, but in Poland it was the same. Why we only have 100 people on our blockade? Well, nobody knew how to join, right? So this is the first step probably to think about, for example. So I don't know, I wouldn't say it's about being or not radical, and I think being radical only helps, but it's about how to make people active in our movement, how to join them to our actions, how to give them the steps of the radicalization so they don't go for the highest risk action as the first step, and so on. So there is a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, I'll just say something like, I think you can't talk about things separate from everything else. You can't talk about like the framing that you're using without talking about the actions. You can't talk about actions without mobilization. If you're going to discuss what's got to be effective, the optimal design is radical actions combined with radical framing combined with mass mobilization. If you only have 2 of those 3, then you're not going to be effective, right? So a lot of radical actions are great, but if you don't mobilize, you're still going to be 10 people on the street, right? You know, if you try and mobilize and don't tell people that it's the end of the world, then they're just going to go back to Greenpeace, right? You see what I mean? You have to do all 3 at the same time. So it's not like one's opposed to the other. And the previous point that was made is absolutely crucial as well, is about this proximity principle, right? You've got to make it easy for people to go onto the street, which means they need to know when to do it. It always helps. So, you know, this is high participation civil disobedience requires people to know what's going on. So you need to have a sophisticated definition of what radical means, right? Radical doesn't mean traditional, old style, anarchistic, you know, direct action, right? Aside from whether that's good or bad, it's not effective because there's no easy way of actually joining in it. So, you know, we've established that it's in the Gandhian Martin Luther King tradition. Everyone knows what's happening on Sunday. You know, people get trained and they turn up. So, yeah, it's all of those things.
Okay, so we should probably wrap it up slowly. There's just one other comment from Luboš, addition to his question he had previously about the zero COVID analogy. He says it's under 600 people signing petitions and joining groups, but the outreach to the public was very low of the zero COVID initiative, I think. Yeah, so if you guys agree, we could do the checkout because we didn't do any check-in. So my suggestion is everyone can choose whether they want to do the checkout in Czech or English. If anyone wants to speak in Czech, I will just quickly translate. Yeah, Kate?
My suggestion is to do a checkout in the chat, because otherwise we'll be here for another 15 or 20 minutes, and some people might be tired and might need to go and do other things. And if we do a little chat, like we still have a checkout, but it's on the chat where everyone gets to be seen and heard. And yeah, you can maybe read out a few of the things that people say. So I invite people to like offer a sentence for, yeah, how are you now? How has this meeting been for you? Is there something important or something that you're grateful for? And please share your checkout in the chat. Ah. So thanks, Honza. There's a lot to think about. Happy to see the Polish rebels again. Roger's looking forward to some more international collaboration. Yeah, thanks to the Poles. We've got Lukasz who's looking forward to being part of something bigger. Yeah, me too. I'll be in touch. Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks, yeah, thanks for everyone coming. Connie appreciated the plain speech. Veronica's tired of online talks. Yes, me too. But this was inspiring. Yeah, especially Jadwiga, who really touched our hearts. Oh, that's another lovely checkout there from Natalie, saying it's really inspirational. And what hit home was the truth and emotion of the Polish rebels about how they managed it all. Oh, Marek found some interesting perspectives. And Murchie was inspired. So I think basically we've got quite a lot of inspired Czech rebels here. And I'd just like to say, as a little recruitment, I suppose I'm the coordinator of the team that is probably doing mass mobilization of sorts. And if you're inspired to do more mobilization, please come and talk to me. I'm Kate_W on Mattermost. We want more people. We've got some amazing rebels doing amazing things. I've got Andre, who's been happily calling all of the rebels in Prague, asking for donations, telling them to come to actions. We've got teams devoted to getting online talks out there. Yeah, so you're very welcome to join us and mobilize the Czech Republic.
I have a quick recommendation, because that's what I like to do. Kate, you've just invited people to get in touch with you. I invite you, if you feel like it, to commit right here and now in the chat, Kate, I'm going to join the outreach team, because we need that. We need you. So don't do it tomorrow. Do it now. This is the moment. We're inspired right now, and everything follows from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Arne.
To join you, Kate, actually. And I'm sure everyone.
Kate watches the chat looking for people to stand up and help. Anyone? And it's like the grass is going across. Oh, bless.
I did a talk with the Swiss, and at the end I said, who wants to give up their job? So I got people put their hands up. So about 10 people.
No, the question is, I think the question is, who doesn't want to give up their job? But you know.
Yeah, that's a good start.
So yeah, should we say that's it, Kate?
Yeah, I think
or
so.
Are we still waiting for everybody to support Kate, please? Because if you want to, please do it.
Bless, it's okay. So I'm actually just going to do a last thing. So Roger and the Polish rebels, you might not know this, but here in the Czech Republic, we say ahoy to say hello, and we say ahoy to say goodbye. And my invitation is always at the end for everyone who is left in the meeting to unmute themselves and have a chaos of ahoy to everyone. So if people can unmute themselves, and let's just all say ahoy to each other. So, ahoy, Roger. Ahoy, Roger. Ahoy, Anne. Ahoy, Lukasz. Ahoy. Ahoy, Natalie. Ahoy, Zuzka, Macha, and Lukasz, Katerina.
Natalie, you've got to come and pick up these posters.
Yeah.
Ahoy, Ožeka.
Okay, everyone show. I'll come. Yeah.
Okay, it's over now. That's it. Díky moc.
Díky moc.
Ciao. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.